There we go. Hey everybody, welcome to Mixlife, episode 40 something, 42, right? Yeah, 42. I like way too many windows open here. Episode 42, we're gonna be talking about drinks today, boozes and beverages of all kinds. So, I'm here with Adam and Rick, hanging out in the background. Is mic muted?
Hey,
did you get a mustache trim there? It's looking a little more defined.
I did that a while ago. I was going too Hulk Hogan with it. I was getting like the handlebar thing. So.
Right.
There's like Parks and Rec. His mustaches wore off, and he's like, "Shave your mustache." He's like, "It's from friction."
Yeah, I just had to go back in and put the rest of it back in with like eyebrow pencil or something.
That's good. That's good. I like it. Right on. I'm digging the Mario shirt, Adam. That's good. Good stuff.
Yeah, as a present from my kids.
Nice.
Not girlfriend approved, but Mixlife approved.
Mixlife approved, right?
And really, we're more important than your girlfriend, so
it's true. It's true. I like how you're rocking the Wired Winco energy drinks. I love those things,
dude. They're cheap, and it's 344 milligrams of caffeine, which seems to me to be a slightly excessive amount of caffeine. But this is the sugar-free kind, so I'm okay.
344. That's like 100. That's 100 more than the strong rock stars. Right?
Yeah, it's more than the pure silver. So I'm pretty sure this is just like probably should be illegal. But yeah, no, they do the job at $1.07 a can.
The Steel Reserve of energy drinks.
Right.
And I was a big fan of Steel Reserve back when I drank. So yeah, it just makes sense.
Oh man, that makes my guts hurt just think about it. Man, I used to drink way too much of that Steel Reserve, dude. All the time.
Do you like your beer to taste like metal?
Right.
Speaking of beer and liquor,
here we are. So my beer adventures were never very positive. Hankson has a decent beer. If anybody's into that kind of thing, it's kind of beer tasting, but it needs like a lot of shit to make it not violently nasty. So
I don't know. Hankson's beer to me tastes like we're talking about Steel Reserve, right?
Right,
like
exactly.
It tastes like Steel Reserve. Like it tastes like malt liquor. It has that really heavy kind of malt liquor sweetness. Nothing like hoppy to counterbalance it. It just tastes like the malt off of cheap beer, which is an interesting flavor. I think it's done fairly well, but yeah, it tastes cheap as hell.
Yeah, exactly. And the Kang had a beer way back in the day, but it was worse by a long shot.
Have you tried Flavor Arts beer?
I have not. No, it's one of the few I haven't tried. Was it pretty bad?
No, I haven't tried it yet, unfortunately.
Your smile implied that maybe you were waiting to hear a horror story.
No, I was just hoping that you had tried it.
No, I haven't. I've tried most of the other boozes, and yeah, beer never really applied to me. Like I like drinking beer, but vaping, it's just there's no translation there.
See, it seems like a really, like, it doesn't seem like a profile that would actually work all that well. And it's probably better off if people just don't go after it. But I will say that Yakima hops does pretty much exactly what Yakima hops should do in those beer recipes. So
yeah, no, I agree with that. You can make it a lot more authentic that way. And it kind of cuts down that unctuous, nasty, malty business going on in Hankson beer.
Plays against the sweetness there well too.
But
you got to ask some life questions if you want to make a beer vape, though.
Yeah, you really have to like question why you're here.
Yeah,
I think Chiba made one of those. So yeah,
Chiba made one of those choices. I mean, he hasn't made like a pizza or a Stromboli vape yet. So far we're okay. He hasn't gone the way of C. Winthrop, but.
There's a fine line between genius and madness, right?
Right, yeah. Exactly. So on to the goods, right? So whiskeys. I think my two favorite whiskeys are TPA's Kentucky Bourbon and Flavor Art whiskey, only as an additive though, because it gets really, really violent if you crank it up too high, and it's like it just vapes like a hangover, right? Like that horrible booze stuck in the back of your throat after you've been out drinking all night. Like
this was Flavor Arts.
Yeah, Flavor Arts whiskey. If you go much over like 0.75 or all the way up to 1%, like it's just like the peat gets like overwhelming.
Yeah, and I think that's the important thing to point out about Flavor Arts whiskey, because I do like it, but it's not a bourbon, and people try to use it as a bourbon, and it doesn't have a charred oak note. It actually has a fairly realistic, like, peat note. Like, it's more of a Scotch type whiskey, although, you know, sweeter than anything that you'd ever get in a bottle of Scotch, but it's the same kind of like vibe.
Yeah, and it's like really really strong. So if you underestimate it, and it gets even stronger with the steep, as I painfully reminded myself this week while I was trying to work with a new flavor that had FA whiskey in it. It was super peaty, which ended up kind of trashing my mix, but that's all right.
You mentioned something with the oak is important.
And the oak factor is absolutely important. In Flavor Art whiskey, like it's not there at all.
Flavora's bourbon is basically a charred oak flavor. It actually works pretty well if you start mixing with TPA's Kentucky bourbon, just because TPA's Kentucky bourbon has like some of the warmth and some of the light booziness, but it doesn't really have a strong charred oak note. Flavora's bourbon is their only flavor that has a warning about shaking it, because apparently there's some like sediment in it or whatever, but it's pretty much a spot on charred whiskey oak.
Can blow yourself up.
Yeah, Shindo Flavor Art Oakwood is really good, but the balance to that is that it's really dry, and it can really dry out a mix really fast. So you have to be careful with it.
And Flavor Arts Oakwood, for me, I guess, doesn't taste as much like charred oak as it does like kind of a woody, astringent thing. I think there is some smokiness to it, but
no, I agree. It's not a smoky thing.
Yeah, it's a little bit more niche than that. I think if you're talking about an oak additive, Red Oak by TPA is actually more charred to me.
Yeah, TPA Red Oak or Flavor Bourbon, I think, is a superior choice as far as for alcohols, for adding like a wood note. If I was working with tobaccos, I would probably lean towards oak wood or wood spice maybe, but definitely in the booze realm. And then there's I got the Vape Train whiskey in the other day, and it's pretty good too. It kind of like sort of like straddles the line between Kentucky bourbon, TPA's Kentucky bourbon, and Flavor Arts whiskey. So it's got a little bit more of that peaty kind of Scotch thing going on, but there's still like a bourbon back note to it that does pretty well. I like it so far. I haven't tested it enough to give like a real reasonable range, but they have a Scotch whiskey here, so it's got a little more of that like that Scotch background. That's pretty good. And then I got the cognac, which was decent, but really, 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 really sweet, which is fine for a cognac. But it is a lot more like a brandy than a. So it's really thickly sweet. It's pretty good.
Have you worked with Flavor West's whiskey at all? Because that flavor confounds me. I like it, but I totally get what people say that it kind of tastes like dog food.
I do kind of. No, I know exactly. I tried to make it work in a few recipes, and I kind of hit this thing where like it would be really great at first, but then a few days in it changes a lot, and it's really weird.
There's something almost savory and meaty to it.
Tastes like dog food.
Yeah, no, there's something hella savory about it. But it doesn't show up right away, right? Like off the shake, it didn't come off that way to me.
Well, and I used Flavor West whiskey in that DIY or Die mix competition in like the final round, and I was doing all my testing at Shake and Vape because like that's what it was going to be. Is a Shake and Vape Shake and Vape recipe. So I used a little bit of Flavor West whiskey kind of instead of TPA Kentucky bourbon because obviously I'm super clever or something, and I apparently just didn't want to use the one that I knew would work. And yeah, after a couple days, it does pick up like that weird kind of like meatiness to it, which is a little strange.
Yeah, it's like having a steak with your shot. You know, like it's a little off. I'm not sure dog food specifically, but I get what you're saying with like the kind of like weird, strange, savory meatiness. It's kind of awkward. I'm still trying to look at. I got a whole ton of booze flavors from Vape Train, and I wanted to make sure I mentioned a few, but I can't find them now because my desk is a living nightmare. The Scotch whiskey is super good. The cognac and their golden rum, that was the other one, was really, really good. So onto rums. Oh wait, somebody asked about Inaware Godfather. Yeah, I think Rick and I were actually just messing with it in not too long ago. We'll cover it here shortly. Rums, right? So I like Flavor Art Jamaican rum as like the basis for any rum that we build like outwards. Sometimes it can kind of lack definition. I think the vape train ones are worth getting on. Yeah, they're worth getting. I like them. I haven't really found very many vape train flavors that I didn't like, and I've been through about 50 of them.
Oh, really stay away from rum raisin, Shindo.
Yeah, it smells like you left a pack of cigarettes on your heater and spilled a bottle of rum on it, and then left them there for a week.
Rum raisin has such a distinct room air freshening quality, so that you're
I don't know that air freshening is
yeah, it's just like a bad air freshener because it's one of those weird ones where like it'll make your room smell. And there was a rum raisin and chef's competition that I vaped, and like the room smelled for like a week of like cigarette tobacco, raisins, kind of just, and I hate it now. Like it totally burned me for rum raisin forever.
I will say I kind of like Flavora's raisin rum, but just sort of as a general funkiness additive with tobaccos. That was actually in that Gravity recipe. It had a little tiny bit of Flavora's raisin rum at 1.25%.
Yeah, I think if you use it really, really low, it can be nice in a tobacco, but I don't care for it as a beverage or strong enough to like use it as a main note in a recipe because it's just like, whoa.
Yeah, it's definitely weird as hell. I don't know. I have a soft spot for those kind of flavors, though.
Yeah, Flavor West rum is okay. TPA's dark rum is not okay.
TPA's dark rum reminds me of Inaware's Jamaican rum, and they're both kind of vaguely fruity and sour.
Yeah,
and so I'm sure it's some component of a rum, but it doesn't have like an actual strong rum flavor to it like Flavor Arts does.
It reminds me more of like that overripe fruit note that you get from like Capella's Juicy Peach and mango, their sweet mango, like that, just like that overripe, like sour, gone bad fruit kind of thing going on.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. It's. I'm sure there's some place to use it, but yeah, it just on its own it tastes like sour bubblegum. It works okay with Flavor Arts Jamaican rum, but I'm usually going back to Flavor Arts Jamaican rum as the base for the rum to kind of add some additives to mess with that.
Yeah, definitely. I did pick up the rum baba, or I got sent the rum baba from Frank and Wonder Flavors, and I think I like it, but it's almost too sweet. I can't use it as a base flavor because it's really like it's got that simple syrup thing going on, so it's just like sugar and booze, right? Like, but it's super sugar.
Dude, I say, sorry, just addressing the chat. I do say vaguely a bunch. I also say sort of and kind of. I use a lot of really Weasley, like, subjective words to compare things.
Because Rick doesn't like to commit to descriptions because he might change his mind.
Hella indecisive, and I'm usually comparing, like, flavor, which is hard to do in any objective sense. So there's a lot of comparatives.
We did a rum base a while back. That was, you do equal parts of Jamaican rum and Oakwood, and then Flavor West butter rum, and then sweetener. So like when I tried to make a rum, it was with kind of Captain Morgan in mind. And then the butter rum from Flavor West really acts like a good sweet side sort of the Captain Morgan. Jamaican rum fills out your middle, and then the Oakwood is the kind of the missing piece, like they're saying about, you know, the wood aspects a part of liquors that aren't really covered in the single flavors. And then the other thing to think of is sweetener, because a lot, you know, if you're making a rum, it's sugar cane, so there's a large amount of sweetener that the alcohol will cover usually, but it's something to, you know, you want to have sweetener in your rums to give it that realistic effect, but not too sweet.
Right. So that pretty much covers it. And then a young lady over at Chef's Flavor in the Chef's Flavors group, Steph Abernathy. Am I remembering her name correctly now? Aberly asked if we would cover gins today. So we're gonna spend some time ranting about the availability of a good gin flavor.
Flavor Monk.
Flavor Art gin is the most widely available, and it can do the job, but it's really finicky. When you get it up high to really get a good juniper flavor, it gets kind of bitter and sharp and a little bit of kind of a throat hit to you. But Flavor Monk's gins, if you're able to get your hands on them, are like they're leagues better. I can't even begin to. Yeah, they're all good. I bought all of them, and I love all of them, and now I can't buy them anymore because it's expensive as shit to ship them from Belgium.
He'll send you some. I got these. Okay, so the story behind Flavor Monk is that he met a guy that was in flavoring that made gin flavorings, right? So the guy that he met was already like established as the best gin flavorist. And then they started trying to branch out, and that's where it got murky because, you know, their other flavors were okay. But if you're all about a gin, it's worth special ordering Flavor Monks because those things are superb. And I don't even like gin. Like I was telling these guys the other day, it's like I vaped more gin than I probably drank in my drinking days of that Flavor Monks because those are just 5-star. So
yeah, they're all incredible. There's my single bad one of the bunch. OM Gin and Vero Gin are probably my two favorites.
See, and I'd probably go a little bit. I really, really like their pure gin. I think it's like a great like single flavor gin, and their gin and tonic has a really nice like quinine tonic note to it. Those two mixed together are actually really great. I didn't care as much for the kind of like fruity or premix ones, but I will 100% endorse that pure gin. I want to bathe in that stuff.
It's delicious, right? And they just the juniper. I don't know what the difference is in the juniper volatiles they're using, but I mean you can really crank them up, and they don't get nasty or weird or funky. Because I remember taking them to like 3 or 4%, easily twice what I was using Flavor Arts gin for a really nice, like robust juniper forward kind of deal. And it was just like, man, I vape it all day, but now I have to be like restrictive because I don't want to be special ordering it all the time.
Yeah, that's too much money. I mean, I could totally. It's kind of like my love for Dandelion and Burdock. I could totally just vape their gin and tonic, like all day. That would totally work for me because I like bitterness in my vapes, and they do a really good tonic there.
For sure. Oh, it reminds me, I should have some more information from Decadent Vapors on Monday about that stuff.
Yes.
Yes. He's supposed to be getting back to me once he's in the office. So, what's this here?
But yeah, for gin, just settle for Flavor Art unless you want to step your game up and then get prepared to pay.
Right. I mean, that's pretty much like
completely worth it, though.
That's like the rule of thumb in DIY, right? Like you could do the job with TPA, but if you want to do it well, I guess right? That's not necessarily always true, but chefs did carry Flavor Monks, but yeah, Flavor Monks did not want them to come down. They didn't want, because chefs was rebottling, and they didn't want chefs to be selling cheaper than they were. Which I get the map pricing thing and all that, but they just, I don't know, the wholesale deal didn't work out very well for chefs, and chefs wasn't able to make any money on it, so they didn't continue with it.
Yeah, there's also a huge discrepancy in pricing between Flavor Monk's like actual website. I think they're charging something like 5-6 euros for like a 10 milliliter. And chefs had that for like 2. So
because they were rebottling it, right? They buy it in bulk and rebottle it, and they were able to sell it cheaper with a wholesale. That's how rebottling works, and that's why DIY like is able to function the way it is because of the way wholesaling works. If we didn't have rebottlers and we were paying like straight from manufacturing prices, like there'd be a lot of companies that we wouldn't be able to use, like Flavor Art or even almost everything else, right?
Yeah, I remember when I first did DIY, I went to like the perfume apprentice and was looking at their prices, and I was like, damn, it's kind of expensive, And then you find like a Bull City, and you're like, oh, all right, this is better. You're gonna end up with a crazy, like, I think they sell a sampler line though for Flavor Apprentice where you can get like a little 2 mil of every flavor they have. And I almost did that in the early days.
Yeah, no, TPA and Flavor West are pretty cheap when you order direct, and Capella's is pretty reasonable. But then you have to like deal with like shipping from like.
Is that the police?
Yeah, it's one of the kids banging on the garage like the cops. Quick, flush everything.
I mean, you are in Florida, so we don't know.
Here, let me go deal with that real quick. I'll be right back.
All right, buddy. Chris Drake said that's what we were saying. Chefs was selling their Flavor Monks prices like because they were rebottling and selling them at a cheaper rate. And Flavor Monks was like, hey, you can't sell them cheaper than we're selling them, so you need to raise your price.
Yeah. Do we want to do like brandies and stuff?
Yeah, I'm not really on the brandy train, so I think I'll let you cover that. I've tried Innoware Godfather, which is pretty okay.
Yeah, Innoware Godfather, I like that one quite a bit. It seems a little bit less fruity and a little bit more boozy than Flavor Arts Brandy. I do like Flavor Arts Brandy, but it's never really given me like a distinct brandy kind of vibe. It kind of feels like a version of their liquid amber. Like you'd add it to stone fruits to kind of get them warmer and sort of juicier and stickier. It feels like they have at least some sort of commonality there. But so I don't use it that much for like a distinct brandy, but I do end up using it to sort of warm and cook fruits. But Godfather's solid.
So some babe says he saw a company that has selling custard e-liquid with actual vanilla pods in the bottle.
That seems like a poor choice.
I just want to say this out loud, and I don't know the company, right? I generally try not to trash on companies too much, but that can be kind of unsafe if it's there for a long time because vanilla beans, just like all other beans on the earth, have lipids, right? They have fats in them. And if they're not extracted safely with like real lab equipment, and an actual process, then those lipids can pass into your lungs and give you lipid pneumonia. Now, one bean in a bottle, maybe not necessarily like an issue, and it's probably not enough to have any effect. But if somebody were to vape only that for a long time, like there's a potential because once those fats adhere to the inside of your lungs, they don't really go away, right? They're there for a long time. So, yeah, just saying, it's just a gimmick, and I wouldn't fuck with it. It's pretty sad. It's just like a food coloring thing they used to do, like why do that? There's no benefit.
So, have you ever had Flavor West tequila? Because it's been one of those things that I've almost picked up about a dozen times and just decided it would probably have to be horrible.
It's not. I don't want to say it's outright bad, but
it's not going to say it's outright good. Yeah.
I think I'm not a big tequila fan. I bought it because somebody else was interested in it, and I made them like a tequila sunrise or something, and they said it was amazing. But I honestly, even smelling tequila from across the room makes me want to throw up in my mouth. I've never been a big tequila fan. There's just something about the smell of tequila that really just sets off my olfactory. It's just really violent to me, like immediately.
Flavor West does have like a couple of weird specialty like liquor flavors or like cocktail flavors, like Happy Hour, and I think the Ruby Relaxer.
The Ruby Relaxer is really good. I like that one.
And it's funny because, yeah, the flavor for me is like kind of so-so, but they have this weird like cheap grain alcohol bite that actually kind of comes across in the vape, which I'm not quite sure how they're doing that. And I don't get that from too many other flavors.
No, Jared asked if food coloring actually hurt you. No, it didn't actually hurt me specifically. But for some food colorings,
tell us what did it do to you, couple?
Right. Show me on the doll where it touched you. No, food coloring also contains additives and preservatives that are not safe to inhale. They're recognized as not being safe to inhale. So it's cool that you have the gimmick right thing, or you want to have the gimmick and have something that helps sell you juice, but there's additives in some of those food colorings, and I don't know which ones they're using, right? Because they don't release that information. So, it's a risky business. Like it's just not something that I think people should do, just to make a buck, right? Like there's plenty of ways to put out really high quality product without having to like take unnecessary risks. And I'm not anti dike tones or anti anything else, but like if it's for a flavor, right, or the product, that's one thing. But when it's just for coloring, like come on. Plus, have you ever seen like what like shock red juice does to your wicks and coils? Ugh. Disaster.
You got like pink color, your neon green or blue lungs.
Right. My very first Kenger sub tank I bought used from this dude, right? Like on a Facebook group, because I don't live anywhere near a vape shop. And he had some like nasty bright pink fucking something in there, and like I ended up just throwing it in a drawer and never touching it because I couldn't get like the color or the smell out of the tank.
Go for it. There's a brand called Innovate Heisenberg, and it's blue. And I still don't know if it's the same as the Heisenberg in Europe, but they made it clear, and their sales went down. So it's like people, it's one of those placebo effects where it's the same mix without the blue. Right.
Well, there are a few rare flavorings that you like that can end up resulting in like a slight color to a liquid, but I'm sure there's some added stuff going on there too. But
like Decadent Vape's absinthe, I'm pretty sure it's not that green by itself.
Right. But it's a very green liquid.
Yeah.
But they are TPD compliant, right? So they've released all their stuff to TPD. So they're set, right? I don't know. I don't have the SDS sheets for all their stuff, but they do, and they have a few colored liquids, right? Like they don't have just the absinthe. I think they have a blue one that I'm pretty sure is in the Heisenberg. I can't remember what it's called, crystal something or other.
I used to, when I first started vaping, there was a shop that was carrying some local like rando brand juice that decided to put out a haterade line, which, super clever. But I liked their grape and then I liked their green flavor. But yeah, it just destroyed, like having to pull crusty brown, purple cotton out of RDAs is just put me off food coloring entirely. Like it gets horrifying looking.
Yep. So yeah, I'm not down with the food coloring, and that's why, because not all of it is safe to vape, and I don't know what they're using. So that's just it, right? And otherwise, I just don't see the point, anyways. So, what do we just finish? We just did brandies. You mentioned Godfather flavor out brandy is all right, I guess. It's a little thin though. It was a little thin to me.
I just use it like liquid amber, man. I've never tried to turn it into an actual brandy.
Yeah, exactly. Liquid amber is really cool because you can turn things into like cocktails or ciders with liquid amber by kind of like cranking it up a little bit.
Makes it taste a little bit funky and fermented too, which is nice.
Yeah, it gives like a funky fermented, like more cider than beer kind of ferment though. So you can do it with fruits and stuff like that. And I've used it in a bunch of cider vapes. Right. Yeah, I think it's. Yeah, what am I missing from flavor? We covered the main ones, right? We got whiskey, rum, gin.
Yeah, do you want to go over champagnes and wines and all that stuff?
Sure, yeah. Flavora's got a really good selection of those, and Flavor West has a few that are actually okay.
I don't know. I'm just going to say it. I still recklessly abuse TPA champagne for body in cocktail vapes. It's like lightly sour. It has something that if you lower your standards a whole bunch, it's vaguely sparkly. It tends to sort of work well to mute aggressive flavors. I end up adding way too much champagne to my cocktail vapes, mostly for texture.
No, that makes sense. I can see that. There's just something in like TPA champagne that like, if I don't cover it up right, It just tastes like pennies, like really chemically, like metal type astringency. I don't get it all the time. It depends on what it's mixed with. But if it's like solo or if it's not with something else strong, like fucks it up for me.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me a lot of Flavor Art's white wine. To me, that white wine has the same kind of sourness and has some of the same sort of effect.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, the Flavor Art white wine is kind of the same. Their champagne is a little better, but less. I don't know. It's not. It doesn't fill the same purpose as TPAs.
Yeah, if TPAs is like vaguely kind of sparkly, if you think about it really hard, Flavor Arts is sort of floral to me, I guess. It doesn't really have the mouthfeel or anything. I mean, it's not a bad flavor. It's like nice, light, and pleasant. I think would work really well in a lot of places, but it doesn't really do anything that I want a champagne to do.
But we're not going to cover our Flavor West Pink Champagne today because Shindo tried to call it in chat. So it's good. That's it.
It's fine. It tastes like grapes, though. So if you're going to use it, make sure your profile can take the grape.
Yeah, exactly. I do like it. It's all right. And they have their Moscato too is actually not too bad. Flavor West Moscato.
I have never tried that.
It's not bad at all. It's not. It's red. It's really red, right? Like it's got like the kind of thick, sweet red wine thing going on, but it's a little on the dry side. So, but it's pretty good. I like it.
Favora has a Moscato flavor too. Have you messed around with that at all?
I have. I really like it. It's kind of like unctuous, so like it's got that like thick, like syrupy sort of thing going on. It's not very boozy though. It's really more like mashed fruit. It's really like I'm not sure how to describe it like better than that.
I think it's a misnomer to call it Moscato because that makes you think of the actual wine, but it does taste a lot like Muscat grapes.
Yeah, exactly. But
like it's that white, tart, sort of unpeeled grape flavor, which it's really cool. But if you start overdoing it, it definitely gets like a little green and tart. I like that, but it's not really necessarily like just a sweet dessert wine kind of concentrate.
Yeah, out of all the new Flavor West alcohol flavors, I think Morning Mimosa was my favorite out of all of them. Even if it has that kind of like weird, creepy prison wine thing going on.
Oh, it's totally prison wine, Flavor. It's Morning Mimosa is prison wine. It's great.
Right? But it's really good prison wine if that's any benefit to you, right? Like it's like I don't like Boone's, like Boone's Farms.
It's the $5.
It's the $5 box of wine.
Morning Mimosa, 1.75.
If you bought like the Cook's champagne and Donald Duck orange juice.
Yeah. And then fermented it with a slice of moldy white bread, then yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
The little frozen canister of orange juice.
Yeah. Exactly.
Just some extra ketchup packets in there for some sugar to get the reaction going.
Oh man. But it is good. I like it. Exactly. You don't need to go back to prison though. Next fight.
And that makes it sound like I don't like it. I like it. Actually, it's like nice and it does that, whatever the fizzy thing is, it does that fairly well. The orange in there, yeah, it's nice and it's boozy and it's kind of sparkly. It just by itself without any actual changes, it tastes like prison wine.
Yeah. And the sangria wasn't bad. I liked their sangria as well. Again, it kind of loses out on the real heavy boozy note, but I think it's pretty all right.
The comments today that you've made of one, I like it, but it tastes like dog food. And then now it's definitely prison wine. Don't think that I don't like it because I do.
But it's prison wine.
He's all about redirection here today.
I don't like, I don't like ruling something out just because it has a weird off note to it if it does something else really well.
Oh, I agree because those are a lot of like the tools I think that people overlook are the flavors that maybe aren't great on their own or kind of weird, but they work. Like brie cheese, right? Brie cheese sucks, right? You vape it by itself, it's fucking horrible. You vape it strong enough to be a primary note, you're probably gonna throw up. But if you use it really low with creams, it does pretty cool shit.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Where like I'll segment flavors of like, oh, this could be a star. Or this is just an accent, and there's not that many stars that can kind of lead your mix. Like if I get a new set of like flavors. That's kind of something I look for. Is like, could this lead the show? You know, and if it doesn't, it ends up with the other hundreds of okay flavors that could add something to your mix, but definitely are something to build around. Like, that makes sense.
Definitely. And then Felora's cider, right? Their apple cider. I really like that one a lot, actually. Out of all of them, I think it's probably my favorite of their boozy notes, right? It's got a really good like cider vibe. The apple note is pretty crisp. It's really good. Yeah, it's good. It doesn't get dry too much. And it plays fairly well with others for the most part.
You liquid amber in that, or do you just use it?
No, you don't even need the liquid amber. You could if you wanted to. Like if you were gonna add a whole bunch of other stuff to it and you were gonna like kind of cover up some of the booziness, but on its own it has a pretty good like kind of like a good cider vibe to it already.
Yeah, that one's definitely grown on me. When I first tried it, like it was part of my batch of like the first flavor reviews I did. I was like, oh, this tastes like grocery store fucking apple cider. And then going back and trying it later, I was like, nope, I was completely wrong. This is totally a hard cider flavor. It's a good hard cider though.
Yeah, it's really good. I really like it. And you can, it's pretty malleable. So like you can take it like the way of like too sweet, like Strongbow or something like that, or you can go somewhere else with it. So it's pretty cool. I think it's really fun stuff. There's this link Dave just dropped in chat. Orange Shandy from the Christmas mix.
See, he's taking advantage of the prison wine. He's using it to his benefit. That
recipe. Wait, lembas bread? Interesting choice.
He's making it even more prison winey. I like it.
Yeah. It's got the bread in there, orange cream, royal orange juice, WS23, and a lot of hops. That's interesting. No, that's really interesting. I like it. I might give that a try. That looks pretty good, Dave. I like
a manmosa.
Manmosa.
with an extra muffin just thrown into the mix.
Right. You gotta get the muffin in there, right? Like you gotta have the breakfast muffins from like the cheap bakery, right? Like at the grocery store.
Yeah, there's like 24 in a pack of the tiny.
But they got to be the ones that
it's the poorly cooked bacon thrown in there too. Just
they got to be the ones that they made yesterday. You can't buy the fresh ones.
Yeah, that's
you save $1. You save $1 to get an extra bottle of Cooks that way.
That are just like at the office coffee station from a couple days ago. And you're like, why not? The church bread line free pantry muffin.
Rough, dude.
Rough. You got me wanting to make a cider now. Now I'm interested.
Yeah, it's really good. I think you should try it out. Even just throw it in like just go like single flavor, like 2.5%, and give it a shot and see what you think. Like, and then go from there. Like you can add more apple to it, or I think you could even cover up the apple. I think if you tried hard enough, and still benefit from the cider. But I haven't tried because I like the apple in it.
It goes well with just a tiny bit of Hankson's apple mix. You can't use a whole lot of it, but works well with that.
Yeah, because otherwise that cinnamon and the spice kind of comes out too much. I really like Hankson's apple mix, but the cranberry and the cinnamon can be a little bit of bullies sometimes if you keep it lower, or if you take it too high. That's what I meant to say.
You could probably make a nice cherry cider with it too. Shout out!
I think I'm gonna make a cherry cider. And I'm gonna put banana clove in it too. And I'm gonna name it Dave's Dreams.
Oh, you gotta throw some black licorice in there too.
Yeah, I gotta get some. Well, yeah. I mean, the clove and anise go hand in hand, anyways, right?
Yeah.
There we go.
Cherry black licorice cider. There we go.
Yeah, and banana. I just want to try to fit as many things as Dave hates into one vape. Maybe some milk.
No,
I'm try
definitely
that
looking
apple.
forward to that.
Did you try the apple flavorist?
The apple?
Oh yeah, they're straight apple.
Yeah, the one they sent.
Oh yeah, I did. The one they sent like a year after everything else. Yeah, it was all right.
It tastes okay. I think it's more sort of in the Fuji range. It seems like a slightly more realistic take on an apple. It seems a little harsh for me, I guess, but that could have just been the way that I was testing it. It doesn't have as much juiciness as something like Capella's, and it isn't quite as realistic as something like Flavor Arts Fuji.
It's got like a good texture to it, like not quite like Flavora pear level of texture, but it's close. But I get that same harshness too. Like I want to love Flavora pear because the texture in it is so incredible. But
Fierce Bloody Mango Sorbet, my dude. That's the only way to use it.
Right, exactly. Well, I think I'm sure there's other ways to use it as a really low additive. I could see it working, but I want to make it work the way it is. God damn it. Maybe if I just use a shitload of MTS.
Yeah, it's not gonna.
Yeah, probably not. No. And I'm not that determined either, so it'll probably never happen. Like it'll be another one of those lifetime supplies because I'll only use it at 0.15%. Okay, well, we covered most of the boozes. Let's talk a little bit. We didn't really cover like non-alcoholic beverages, which I know is, I mean, that's boring anyways, right? So, for lemonades, I think I prefer Lorenz lemonade over just about everything else for like a beverage base. Flavor West lemonade is better if you're going for a more tart like lemonade, or Flavora's lemonade is really good if you're trying to like sit somewhere in the middle. It tastes really similar to Lorenz to me, but it's not quite as candied as Lorenz. But it's got the kind of similar thing, like the similar lemonade vibe to it. And Capella's a lemon Sicily, not Flavor Ice, but Capella's is another really good choice. Flavor West is kind of tart, and it can get kind of a nasty. I get a bit of a throat hit from it if I take it up too high, but it's still pretty good. You just have to come back and tame it with some EM or something. What else are we missing?
I don't think I've ever actually tried mixing a lemonade recipe. That's like one giant mixing blind spot I have. I've never tried to put together a lemonade.
Really? I really like lemonades. Like Lorenz lemonade is probably one of my most used like flavors, and it's a really good place for florals too. So
yeah, I tend to stay away from the sour vapes because I like them at first and then I hate them after vaping them for like a couple hours.
Lorenz lemonade is almost like candy lemon heads. It's like yeah, it's barely lemonade, right? Like it's really sweet. And then all the other stuff that you would add to a lemonade beverage kind of helps bring it more to the beverage department. But I think that's what makes it a good base by itself.
I made an Arnold Palmer that was pretty good a while back.
Yeah. Oh, teas. We didn't cover teas, but I mean, there's not a lot to cover on teas. Like Flavor Art black tea is really good, but TPA's black tea tastes like a handful of soil, like actual dirt.
It is surprisingly offensive. Like it's offensive in a really interesting way. I haven't tasted in too many other flavors, so I will give them credit for that. But yeah,
it is like earthy to a fault.
I have no idea how to actually use that, but it's a really accurate dirt flavor, so it's got that going for it.
The Flavor Art black tea's got a nice like level of tannic kind of tea going on, and Flavora lemon tea has a good black tea base, but the lemon is obviously there. If that's a downside for you, then it's a bummer. But I think it's a good lemon too. I like the lemon tea a lot. And TPA's green tea is okay, but it's really grassy if you don't use it. If you use it too high, or if you don't cut it with something else, like a cream or more tea or something else.
So we did have a question from the chat. Just
okay,
sure. Why not? Saline usage. I've never gone for that. I don't understand why that would actually work.
So the only thing that I ever used saline for to any good effect was before we had lovage and other additives to make tobaccos a little more wet and bright. Saline was a good way to do that, right? The minute amount of salt content in the saline actually helps tobaccos a great deal and helps them stay brighter and seem fresher, right? Cuts out some of that dry harshness. The downside
is just the water there.
It's just the acid content in the salt solution or whatever, right?
Okay, because you're not getting like chunks of salt actually being vaporized, like that's
right. No, exactly. But it does. But the salt content will still affect your coils, right? Like even though it's not like literal chunks of salt, like the chemical reaction will still occur. But I don't really feel like outside of tobaccos that saline has a place in vaping, and I think that we have better options with tobaccos now than we ever did before. And I just don't see any reason to go with the saline anymore.
So we had another question from Cesare Yothers. asking about the new TFA stuff on Bull City. I'm still in the middle of testing through all of that. I will say, and I think Dave would probably back me up, that their cherry extract is actually not terrible. It's not like a silver bolt of a cherry, but it also doesn't taste like garbage. So that one's definitely good. I know, Adam, you've been using that fruit smoothie, right?
Yeah, the fruit smoothie got good reviews, and then I messed around with the Cola Fizz, and it's really just strong. Like, really, I don't think any of the root beer floats kind of compensate the right way for how strong the root beer and the Cola Fizz would be. Because like, you literally have to be 95% cream and like just a dash of the sodas to really get a float going on. Because I made one at probably 11% and root beer down at like a 2 maybe, and cola at a 1, and it made a great root beer. So it tasted like a perfect like Barks root beer, but it did not taste anything float whatsoever. So it really, those two flavors are so dominant in what your tongue's going to taste. But the Cola Fizz, you should definitely get if you even fuck with sodas at all, because it's cola strong. So like you're gonna have a cola note there, but root beer kind of ties that together where it works. But it's very dominant. It's one of those strange flavors. And like you were saying with the fruit smoothies, like it's very thick. But yeah, if you're trying to make a smoothie, you get kind of thin. You know, you don't get that milkshake thick experience. So like this fruit smoothie flavor is perfect filler. It's like it doesn't have any real dominant flavor notes. Like maybe there's a little strawberry to it, but like nothing stands out where you got to build around it. So it's perfect for being like a base to your smoothies. So you could go orange banana, and the fruit smoothie is not going to ruin that. You can go berry, whatever. So I like that one a lot.
I thought the fruit smoothie was really interesting. I don't know. When I was vaping it, I gave some to my girlfriend, like asking her what the hell this tastes like. She said lip gloss. And the more I vaped it, like I totally got that this kind of, by itself, it kind of tastes like a candy, like a Sweet Tarts, like candy lip gloss. Like it has some almost like energy drink, I guess, like generic tartness and sweetness to it. But the mouthfeel is so like crazy thick and a little bit waxy. I think it's not going to be like a single flavor by any stretch of imagination, but I think it's a really useful texturizer.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I did I think I did like a dash of orange mandarin, and then strawberry, and then maybe banana cream. So I use those almost equal to the smoothie part, and then it's steeped really nice. Like I gave it to my girlfriend too. That was designed for her, and she was good with it. So it's like thick as hell though, like Inawera vanilla shisha thick. Like,
yeah, and there's no dairy notes too, which makes it a little bit more versatile. I think it's going to be a really interesting texturizer moving forward.
Yeah, it's that's what really seemed to like stand out with this line they just released, was a little more like maybe they've got an actual vapor trying their stuff now or something, because the cherry, the Cola Fizz, the smoothie come across a lot more like somebody tried it and they're like, yeah, that's good, versus like, we think this tastes like brown sugar and it tastes awful type of thing.
Counterpoint, that chili mango flavor they put out is pretty atrocious. I'll just throw that out. It tastes like mango shampoo, and then somebody added some Flavor West capsicum or Flavora heat to it. There's no like actual chili taste, and the mango itself is super soapy. But
you've crushed Dave's dreams right there.
Dude, I still need to see if Inawera's shisha chili is any good, or if it's just another one that's just going to be like spicy heat. Because as far as I know, there's no way to get that actual like chili flavor in there.
Yeah, what was it? Sriracha you vaped? That was one of your best video moments.
And, you know, I don't like one-on-one sriracha, but I would totally recommend Real Flavor Super Concentrate Sriracha. It tastes really good, and I could see that I could see using it, but it doesn't vape for shit. Like, it's full of some kind of sugar or something that just instantly burns. Great flavor, though, if you like sriracha, but yeah, I wouldn't try to vape it.
Bummer jam. And then my last quick shout out is we have root beers, right? So Flavora root beer is like currently the all hail the king root beer on the market. It's super duper good. I think that it bridges a lot of gaps that Flavor West root beer misses. If you're on a budget and you don't want to spend $5 or $6 for a good root beer, well, spend an extra hour at work and just buy the extra root beer, buy the good stuff, right? Okay, like take an extra hour at work. It's worth
especially if you get paid $5 an hour.
Right. I mean, if you're only making $5 an hour, well, maybe you shouldn't
spend the hour.
It's still worth the hour. Do it. But Flavor West root beer it's kind of a reasonable substitution to Flavora's. If I had to make a choice to not use Flavora root beer and use something else instead, Flavor West would be the one I went for. And their cream soda is actually pretty decent. It's a little on the weak side, but it's pretty good. And then what was that one Flavora flavor? I can't remember what it was. That had like that series. It was the ginger peach that tastes like fucking.
Oh yeah, that just tastes like cream soda.
It just tastes like cream soda, like weird.
It's bizarre, but it's a pretty decent cream soda flavor.
Yeah, it's a good cream soda. Yeah.
Shindo brought up Flavor Arts Aurora. So going kind of back to more of the lemonade kind of side of things. Aurora, they dropped it from BCF, which is a shame because I don't think too many people were buying it. But it's like this really cool sparkling limeade with a little bit of zest thing. It's actually really good for bulking out your cocktail vapes, adding a little bit of that citrus and that effervescence to your cocktail. So shout out to Aurora.
Amaretto, huh? Who makes a good amaretto?
I don't know. Amaretto involves cherries, and again, you're talking about just cough syrup, basically.
Right. I mean, digestives are just that's like cognac, right? Like,
oh, digestives, I think, are like
brandies,
super herbal liqueurs. So if somebody made a Fernet Branca concentrate, believe me, I would do horrible sexual things to them for that concentrate. But as far as I know, there's nothing that really fits the bill for good digestives.
Right. So I'm looking at the wiki, right? So it says brandy and cognacs, fortified wines like sweet sherry and vermouth, and then herbal liqueurs, chartreuse, Jägermeister.
Anybody ever do a vermouth?
Flavor West Martini.
Flavor West Martini has a good vermouth kind of vibe to it. And Vape Train Bitters, I think actually is like just like dry vermouth, right? Like it's just dry, bitter, and that's it. It's dry and bitter.
Me and my awful stepbrother, we stole a bottle off a bar cart when we were like 15. No, it had to be younger, like 14. On fan vacation from like a wedding bar, and like we were so happy we snatched this bottle, and it turned out to be vermouth.
Oh, the good old days. I think my first swiped bottle of booze was Old Crow whiskey. Right. So like, I don't know if any of you have ever like delved into the world of the cheapest of nasty whiskeys.
Don't you badmouth Old Crow.
No, I will never badmouth Old Crow, but
concrete has left the hangout.
I'm over it.
It fortified me for a future of whiskey loving, because after that there can be no bad whiskey, right? Like Old Crow, it's so comfortably consistently bad.
It's an aggressive cheap bourbon. We can call it that.
Yeah. But it does the job. That's for damn sure.
I used to absolutely dig Old Crow. My little brother and I ended up drinking a lot of Old Crow and doing some very questionably legal or sane things. It was great.
So I lived in this band house for like 2 years before I left for the Army, and that's pretty much what we lived on, right?
That's all you gotta say is I lived in a band house for 2 years. Like,
there was like 3 bands. We were all living there, and we would just like write music and get completely hammered all day, every day. I'm not sure how we paid for everything because only like 3 of us had jobs out of like the 12 people that lived in this huge house. It was super old, and the owners didn't give a fuck about anything as long as the rent was paid, right? And but like we would just jam, and then like people would just show up with alcohol, and it was like that was it. We would just get wrecked all the time, and Old Crow was always like right on top of my amplifier, and I always had a bottle there, like all the time. And then my liver tried to divorce me. I woke up one morning on the couch, and there was divorce papers from my liver on the coffee table. And,
Through.
and then I left for the army, right? Because I was like, oh well, my liver left me. I guess fuck it, I'm done. Good whiskey sour. That'll be our last question, I think, of the day. Well, I mean, sour mix isn't really lemon, right? Like, what is in sour mix even?
Yellow, bright yellow, mostly,
yellow.
Unless you're making an actual sour mix. If you're buying sour mix, it's basically bright yellow.
It's lemon and lime. And
I'd say Capella lemon lime probably comes the closest to sour mix, especially with some sweetener.
Yeah, but then you really got to crank up the sweetener, right? Because the thing that people love about sour mix so much is the sugar in it, right? Like it's like 75% simple syrup and 25% actually like lemon lime, right? There's just a ton of sugar in it. So, yeah, like use more sugar than you think you need, and you'll probably get there. I never like sour mix myself. It's too, I can't handle that much sugar in my booze because the hangover gets really bad when you get all that sugar in there, right? Any last minute shout outs or drinks or beverages you think I might have forgotten? Because I probably did.
I think we actually talked about mixing this hour, so I think we deserve hearty.
Like the whole hour, right? We didn't spend half the time talking about Rick eating an orange naked, or
well, that's the last 5 minutes. We're still in the terror zone, the danger zone.
We're in the danger zone now, right? I wish we wouldn't get like a DMC for playing the danger zone right now, because that's like my band. I love that song.
I do have something. Add a little bit of cooling to your booze vapes. It really helps sell the kind of mouthfeel too, because you don't want like a solid booze vape. It doesn't really work that way. A little bit of cooling, like some WS-23, actually would work well with pretty much any booze vape that you want to do. You don't want to like overdo it and throw in enough that it feels too icy and like slushy-ish, but even like 0.1% can like substantially kind of clean up your sort of booze and make it hit a little bit more like an actual alcohol. So it also helps with like any kind of like effervescence you're trying to get in there, just having a little bit of cooling.
I agree with every point except for in the case of whiskeys. If you're cooling your whiskeys, you're doing it wrong. You should never drink it cold. If you do, you're wrong. Quit.
Not just Old Crow, but warm Old Crow, man.
Yeah, no, you can't drink it cold, dude. Don't drink it cold. You ruin it. It ruins everything.
I would totally drink a moonshine flavor, though. I'm just saying.
Oh, that'd be fun. I wonder how we could do that.
You're just looking for an excuse to use like a ghetto rigged pot still.
I have a real pot still, actually. Like,
so there you go.
Right. I don't need to. Like, I can already moonshine if I want to. I used to.
You better not let the revenue man hear
right.
talking about that.
But I never made a profit though.
I never sold it. No, I didn't ever. No, dude. Alcoholics don't make moonshine to sell it to people. They make it to drink.
Jar life.
For sure. All right. So anyways, thanks for watching, guys. We'll try to have a little more of this kind of like geared content. If there's something you want us to cover on the show in between the weeks, join our Facebook group that I forgot to link in the description like I usually do. So let me find it and I'll get a link in there.
It's called Mixlife.
Mixlife. I'll put a link in the chat. So jump in there. I used to do polls every week, but honestly, nobody ever filled it out, so I stopped doing them. So hop in there, ask some questions, or say, hey, could you cover this on your next Mixlife episode? And we'll talk about it on the next show. And other than that, happy mixing. Enjoy the rest of your weekends, dudes. Cheers.